for some screaming heavy metal? We rock!
But the evil that men do lives on.
We gonna bang your head!
You are now listening to the Music Mania podcast, a hard-hitting show featuring all things hard rock and heavy metal. And now here are your hosts, the Twins of Chaos, Clint Switzer and Paul Lagana.
Paul, we are back in studio, back at it, back from our weekend of rocking at Rocklahoma and the Downstream Casino over the weekend. Man, it was a whirlwind of a trip. We are back in here. There was questions as to whether our last show was going to be our last show, but it was not to be because we're back for the attack right here, man.
Back and better than ever, Clint. But let me tell you something. Friday night, the Foreigner concert, going backstage, meeting those guys, and then what a show they put on, buddy.
I love Foreigner. We've been champions of theirs for a long time, been championing this version of Foreigner. We got to go back, see our buddy Jeff Pilson, who we had on the show last month. Got to check out Foreigner from the Downstream Casino. What a great show it was. Great to go backstage, like you said. I love that band, and it was just a precursor to the rocking that went down. We, of course, went down to Rocklahoma, got to hang out in the cushy media tent with some of the other, rock media personalities like ourselves. I think we were the coolest ones there, if you ask anyone around there. But
I would say so. Buddy.
It was a great experience getting to go to Rocklahoma. Got to see the Scorpions, a band we had never seen before, and to see them in that environment in front of 30,000 people, it was special. What a performance they put on. It was one of the top 10 shows I've probably ever seen. To see them in front of that kind of a crowd and those songs, it was relentless. They were amazing. They sounded great. Klaus Meine still sounds wonderful at 68. What a show, man.
Absolutely breathtaking, the Scorpions were. It was unbelievable to me. 35 years that I waited to see that, and they did not disappoint in the least.
Well, we have a huge show for you. Now that we're back from Rocklahoma, we're back to business here. We have a huge show coming up. We want to thank you, everyone, for listening, downloading on iTunes or listening on YouTube, either format that you choose. If you're on YouTube, definitely make sure that you subscribe to the page and give us a like. And if you're on iTunes, do the same. Give us a star rating and subscribe to the podcast because we have one new every Friday. We try to keep things in line. We try to keep things on time. We try to do things in a timely fashion, in an organized fashion. Doesn't always work, but this time we're back at it. And I'll tell you what, Paul, we have a huge guest today. We're going to be talking with JJ French from Twisted Sister. Of course, they are embarking on their 40 and Fuck It tour. And yes, I can say that because that's the name of the tour.
That's right.
But yeah, it's going to be great to talk to JJ French, man, a founding member of Twisted Sister. He, that band slugged it out in the clubs for close to 10 years before they found success. Their new documentary, We Are Twisted Fucking Sister, now available on Netflix and streaming services. It is a great documentary, great look at a band that fought for its success, got there, and Twisted Sister now saying goodbye a year following the death of their drummer, AJ Perro. We're going to ask JJ about that and all things music related. He's a guy that he's on the management side. He manages the band. He manages other bands. He's very savvy when it comes to the world of rock and roll. We're going to ask him a lot of questions. I can't wait to catch up with JJ, man. Twisted Sister, one of my favorite bands of all time. They played at Rocklahoma the first time I went. Too bad they weren't there this time. But Twisted Sister on their final tour, 40 and Fuck It, if you will. I guess we can say that at this point.
Yeah, we can actually. JJ French, one of the hardest working guys ever. Obviously, he's been around since 1976. As you said, Twisted Sister basically got into the mainstream with the Stay Hungry album back in 84, 85. So that's when they came into the mainstream, and what an album that was. You had
We're Not Gonna Take It, I Want to Rock. Right. Captain Howdy, my favorite, Burn in Hell. I mean, it was an album that put Twisted Sister over the edge, and just as quickly as they achieved success, Twisted Sister were gone from the mainstream. The next couple albums were disasters, and the band wanted to basically kill themselves at that point, and they went their separate ways, and they were done. So Twisted Sister has a very interesting story of the rise, the fall, and the resurrection, because now we're in the resurrection period of Twisted Sister, as big as they've ever been, headlining festivals all over Europe this summer as they say goodbye once and for all. Of course, their drummer AJ Perro died a year ago. And now doing a proper farewell to the fans. She was one of the most high energy, one of the best live bands you'll ever see, and I think JJ French is going to back me up on that. And with that, we want to go ahead and welcome our guest. It is Mr. JJ French, guitarist and founding member of Twisted Sister. JJ, welcome to the show, man. How's everything going, my man?
it's not snowing in the Northeast, so I guess it's all good, my friend.
Well, you could have tornadic activity and torrential downpours here in the Midwest. I guess you take it as it comes. It's springtime in America, which means it's the summer's here, JJ, and you guys are about to embark on the next leg of the 40 and Fuck It tour, aptly titled, I might add. Was that a JJ thing, or was that? I mean, that sounds like kind of a you thing. Did you come up with that?
No, I'll tell you what it was. We were thinking of what we would call it, and I'm sitting around thinking, okay, it's 40 and farewell, and then it's like New York 40 and forget about it. And my girlfriend said, your fan club is called the Sick Motherfucking Friends of Twisted Sister, and you come up on stage, you call yourself Twisted Fucking Sister, so why are you being so damned, modest? Just say 40 and fuck it. That's exactly how you feel. And I went, you know what? She's right. So thanks, Sharon, for giving me that idea.
Aptly named too, JJ.
Yeah, absolutely. For a band that
I think 40 and fucking means a lot to a lot of people on a lot of different levels too, right?
It does, and for the band, it's unbelievable that 40 years for this band, JJ, a band that's that's been your home for all this time, and you're a founding member of Twisted Sister, and of course you guys are going to call it quits October 1st in Lakewood, New Jersey. Why that town? Why that venue?
Actually, you know what? Actually, that date is the last area date. I don't know what the last date's going to be. It could be the last date, but right now it's just the last. It's the only area date. So there was like a misprint on that. That's what that is.
Well, and I know you guys didn't want, and Dee Snider's talked about it too. You guys didn't want to do some prolonged, farewell tour 2 years like Motley Crue just did. I mean, that's obviously not what you guys are trying to do here.
Well, that's not it. We really just don't do that. I mean, Twisted Sister plays 15 shows a year, and that's how we were going to do it anyway. So it doesn't. It was never part of our. It was never part of a plan to do something like that. It's just that since we've been back together, we have just done 15 to 20 shows a year. That's it. And that's all we had planned to do this year. In fact, we weren't even going to do it this year. Last year was going to be the last year, and then AJ passed away, and we decided to make it more official. But last year was going to be the last year. We were just going to play the dates and just never play again. But we decided to officially say that it's over this time.
Well, glad that's happening, and of course Mike Portnoy filling in on drums for AJ Pero, who passed away a year ago this past March, and obviously it's important for his legacy for you guys to, I think, to finish this right. Now, I want to talk about your legacy in general, because in 2003 you guys reunited, and you've been playing to enormous crowds, the huge festivals. Like you said, you only do select dates a year. But how important have these past 13 years been for the legacy of this band? Because things did not end well for you guys in the late 80s, but now you guys are able to go out and say, hey, this is doing it the right way, I think.
Well, we accomplished things that needed to be accomplished in order to I don't know, to just kind of leave it correctly. I think when we disappeared the first time, had we not come back, the band wouldn't have been as seriously considered as it is now. Now the band it's a whole different level. The band kind of came back in ways that were monstrously big, and we always knew that the capacity for it to be that big was there. But you needed to kind of prove it to yourself, and I'm happy that the fans went as crazy as it did and gave us this enormous success story. I mean, when I think about all the American metal bands who didn't have the luxury of having a European fan base, but we did. And to see the European fan base be as loyal as they are, which is a mind fuck actually to see that, I feel blessed that way, because so many of the American metal bands just never understood the crowds outside the U.S. In fact, most bands don't. The crowds outside the U.S. are really extraordinary, and it gives us a worldwide fan base. I'm very, very proud. And between the European, the Canadian, the Mexican, the South American fan bases, it's amazing. And they kind of look at bands more religiously than here. I think here it's kind of an afterthought. Like, what are you doing Friday? I'm going to go see Twisted Sister. But there, it's a social event. A mammoth social event. It's pretty extraordinary.
Well, luckily, hopefully, in these past 13 years, there's been overseas human feces hurled on stage at the band as it was in 1982. That's still one of my favorite stories. But I'll tell you what, JJ, I mean, you guys have been, you and Dee Snider both have kind of been outspoken. We're in an area of bands now where bands are becoming quote unquote brands. They're more so than identifiable, band members. I mean, you guys talk about Kiss and how they conduct business. Now you have Axl Rose playing with AC/DC. I mean, what are your thoughts on that and just kind of the whole idea of bands continuing on beyond their actual members playing in it, which is unbelievable to me. But
well, I think you have to look at this in a number of ways. Number one, does it really matter what I think? I mean, if a fan is going to buy a ticket and they're happy, then the fact that JJ French thinks it's not authentic is kind of disingenuous. I mean, if you're going to buy it, then buy it. I mean, Foreigner's out there touring, and there's not a single original member of Foreigner. So in essence, when people start replacing so many people, it becomes a cover band. But you know what? If people want that, then really, who am I to say no? I've got more of a problem with just the fact that a lot of bands aren't really good anymore. But then again, if you're willing to pay for it, what does it matter if JJ French says, I think that they're terrible or something, or they're not playing up to par, or we blow them off the stage or whatever? I mean, what is the point of saying it? We go out, we have a legacy to protect. We have a legacy to defend. We have a reputation about being the best live act in the world, and we take it seriously. And if bands don't care, that's their business with their fans. And they want to charge, the Rolling Stones charge $700 a ticket to see probably the worst rock band currently touring. I mean, the Stones are maybe the worst band I've seen in 20 years. And it's terrible. But, they're the last living connection to the Beatles. So I guess people are willing to pay and put up with watching them decompose in front of your eyes, I guess. I mean, the Stones fans are so old, they don't clap because they're afraid the lights will go on in the arena.
And you would actually know about the Stones because...
I mean, watching Keith and Ronnie try to play guitars like being driven in a tour bus by Jose Feliciano and Ray Charles without a GPS. It's one of the scariest things you've ever seen, but people pay, so really, who am I to judge? Knock yourself out if you enjoy it. All I know is our fans love us. They come see us. We give them their money's worth and more.
There's no doubt about that. And also, you would know better than anybody because I read somewhere where you're actually a big Stones fan when you were actually starting out back in the 60s.
Well, of course. I mean, the Stones are one of the greatest live bands in the world, and so is Zeppelin. But these bands kind of deteriorated severely over time, and it's something that Twisted Sisters are very conscious about. We don't deteriorate. We get better. Certain bands do. Priest has been very conscientious about being great, and AC/DC has been conscientious about being great. It's an important thing to do because it's your core product. No one buys records anymore. No one buys new music anymore, so that's a waste of time. So your core product is you. And if you are not great, then you don't have a great core product. I'd like to think that the product that we sell, Twisted Sister Live, is every bit as good as you remember it, if not better, so that when you tell your friends, man, you missed this really fucking great show, dude, you gotta go see it. They come out and they go, holy Christ, I never realized it. And then people say that. They never did. So the movie kind of legitimizes us, and it allows a platform for us to proclaim, that we enjoy this position, and we get the best reviews of every band at every festival all the time, and we covet that. We love it, and we owe it to our fans to be great. It's a great experience. Listen, when I used to see the Stones as a kid and I would dream about being a rock star, I would want to give that same feeling to somebody else. So to me, the greatest legacy we have is that when you come see our band, you escape for those 2 hours and you just go, wow, man, I'm just, I want to be swept away by this. That's what the best bands have done for me, and that's what I hope we do for our fans.
I think a lot of the casual fans that only know Twisted Sister by some of the hits are absolutely blown away when they see the band live. And I've been championing the band Twisted Sister my whole life. And I want to get into the documentary. You mentioned the film. The documentary is We Are Twisted Fucking Sister, aptly titled once again. Here we go. And it's now available on Netflix, which is great because everyone can check that out. That gets it out to a much bigger audience, and everyone is able to see that. I mean, I think it's just a fabulous look at a gritty band that slugged it out in the New York clubs for 10 years. JJ, you guys did that, and you kind of ended the film right before the success hit. I mean, that had to be, I think that's kind of what's interesting about the film, is you guys ended the film before you guys had to stay hungry and took off. I mean, was that purposeful?
Right. That's what makes the movie so good. It gives people an idea of the character and the grit and the determination that the band had to succeed, and it ends before We're Not Gonna Take It, ends before I Wanna Rock, it ends before the breakup, it ends before the resurgence and the reemergence of the band and the super success the band has had now coming back. You know, we sell the records yet at the time that the movie exists. I mean, look, the legacy of the band now, 25 million records sold, 37 gold and platinum albums, headlining 37 countries. I mean, it's a hell of a legacy for a little band from a bar on Long Island, right? It's a long way to go from there. But that story, We Are Twisted Fucking Sister, tells a story that people don't understand. We weren't an 80s hair band. We were a 70s bar band, actually, that kind of lasted long enough and made it in the 80s. And that's a huge difference. I think you guys would agree. You know, we're not part of that whole Motley Rat, LA circus. And I'm not saying those bands aren't good, but we're not part of the Poison Warrant thing. We're this New York thing, which is wholly different. You know, we're tougher. We're a different animal. If I think of the three bands that came out of New York, it would have been Kiss, us, and then of course down near Philly, it was Cinderella. And we're all tougher bands. We're more blues based than those LA bands were, in our own way. But Twisted was just a tough as nails bar band that figured out a way to make it in the 80s. And our character shows, because here we are 40 some odd years later from the original version, you know, from the band starting out. And we're every bit as lethal now as we were. And that is because we learned our craft by playing, I don't know, like I think we were at 7,000 performances by the time the band stopped playing the bars. Think about that for a second, guys. Before the record deal, we were at about 7,000 performances. That's crazy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So, JJ, talk a little bit about Dee Snider. I mean, to me, this guy has been the epitome of one of the greatest frontmans ever. His energy on stage, everything about it. So, just talk a little bit about him and your guys' relationship.
Well, I introduce him on stage every night as saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you the man that looks like Sarah Jessica Parker did the Nevada of Acid."
Oh my God! I mean,
that's how I introduce him.
And it's endearing to him, I'm sure. I mean,
and that gives you an idea about his sense of humor, doesn't it?
Oh, but
I mean, that's how I introduce him. I don't know if there's a better frontman out there. He's funnier than David Lee Roth. He sings better than 90% of them. He approaches his job on stage professionally amongst the best I've ever seen. He does vocalizing for 2 hours before a show. He takes his performance, every single performance, to heart. It matters to him. His legacy matters to him. He never dials it in, never phones it in. He's a funny fucking guy. I mean, usually he says something on stage that has us all cracking up and crying almost because it's so funny at some point of the night. He doesn't do the shtick where like the singer says the same thing at the same point every night, where you can almost time your watch to the bullshit cliches that have been thrown around, by every front man in the world. He actually thinks of topical things to say because he wants to keep the audience engaged. He engages the audience in a way that I never saw another singer engage the audience. All these things are part of why it works. He's very disciplined, and we get along because we're driven. Both of us are very driven that way. I'm driven on the more business side of it. He's driven on more the creative side of it. The band was never designed to starve to death. That was bullshit. It was always designed to make money. That's another big difference in us and most bands. We just knew how to earn a living and do what we did by making money and being successful. We always made a lot of money, and I make no apologies. Even in the bars, when we were playing 5 nights a week, we were making fucking boatloads of dough, and that financed the shows. We never had to borrow money. And by the way, both Dee and Dee's parents and my parents stopped giving us money when we were 15 years old. I mean, we didn't know each other at that point. He's much younger than me, but we worked. And I took my last off from my parents when I was 15. I think Dee may have taken his last when he was 16. So you work your ass off, and that's what you do. And Mendoza too, and Eddie as well. So everything we made, we put back in the band. We made a lot of money, but we never starved. It was never the thing. We were really smart. We got rid of people who were fucked up. That was important. Druggies, alcoholics. I mean, I became so anti-drug and so anti-alcohol in this band because basically they have no business in rock and roll. Now that runs counter to what everyone's
to the cliche, yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's fine. You want to be Keith and, you want to decompose in front of people. That's your business. That's not our business. So the band that made it, that people see in the documentary, that was 14 band members later. Okay?
Sure.
So we got rid of most of them from drug and alcohol abuse. And what you got yourself is a hard-working straight band that just goes out there and kicks ass, whose number one credo is you do it for your fans. You perform at the highest level for them. And fuck this narcissistic self-absorption bullshit where you're going to get high and put on a terrible show and look at your shoes. That's not what Twisted Sister was about. It was, what we were about was dress like women, talk like men, play like motherfuckers. And that was the motto of the band. It still is. And luckily, Mike Portnoy picks up where AJ left off because he's a fucking motherfucker.
That's awesome, because I was going to ask you about that back in the 80s when, I mean, like you said, it was so rampant back then, and you are on record as saying, I mean, you guys didn't do anything like that. I mean, you were straightforward.
Never been on stage high in my life, ever. Never. Mendoza, never. Ever.
Right.
And if you're asking me how do you avoid it, it's very simple. If you just don't do it, you don't do it. I'm not going to say to you that it wasn't offered. Yeah, but if you don't do it, you don't do it. I mean, you could. It just never even entered my mind. It just really never even entered Dee's mind or Mark's mind. No one ever. Very rarely. You know, in the 5 years that we were touring the world with all the biggest bands in the world, I was offered drugs one time only.
Mm-hmm.
By the roadie of Iron Maiden, who didn't know that we were straight, and he made the mistake of offering us drugs. I almost put him through a fucking wall. But I wouldn't tolerate it. Fired crew members for it. I hate that shit. You know, there's no place for it in professional business, and no place for it in rock. And so if you function with it, that's fine, but not with Twisted Sister. You don't.
That's a true testament to the band, and the reason why you are still here, and many of your peers, sadly, are not. But that's brought onto themselves. Unfortunately, Gene Simmons said, controversially, "Hey, Prince, he may have killed himself with prescription drugs, whatever. That's not for us." But that's kind of that. Maybe he's right. Maybe these bands aren't here. These people aren't here on their own volition. But JJ, I want to get into this before we let you go. Is that we talk about the band gutting it out in the New York club scene throughout the 70s and the early 80s, but is there a moment that you can remember that you finally took a deep breath and said, my God, we've made it. We finally have done this. I mean, you guys had Under the Blade in 82, Can't Stop Rock and Roll had MTV success, but was it not till Stay Hungry that you finally said, my God, yes, we've done it? Like, I mean, what point did you take a deep breath?
You know, that's an interesting question. I was asked that today in an interview about 2 hours ago. And the answer to that question, I never thought it. I never thought we reached success. The week that Stay Hungry went platinum, my father died. So that took away from me any particular joy of that album. By the time it went double platinum 3 months later, this was already 13 years in for me, and I really thought about it. I mean, the day that my manager called me and said for double platinum, I thought, you know what? If I add up how much money I've made in the last 13 years, it's 20 cents an hour, maybe, that I kept. And I just thought to myself, fuck it, man, that's what it's about. I can't, look, I don't want to sound, how do I put this? I am grateful that I was able to make a living doing something that I told my mother I was going to do and had absolutely no idea what I was saying at the time. I dropped out of high school. She said to me, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to become a rock star. Don't worry about it. I didn't know what the fuck I was saying, but I just wanted to shut her up. And I dropped out with 2 months to go as a political protest with the Kent State kids being killed, because I'm old enough. I'm old enough to be that old. I'm going to be 64 in 2 months. So, when the band, there was that big flush of success, and then there was a major lawsuit and millions of dollars sued, and we lost everything, and we crashed and burned, and I lost everything. Filed for bankruptcy, went through divorce, and literally had nothing by 1988. Zero. I had two guitars and a subway token to get me uptown. And it didn't lose it because I knew exactly why. I mean, it wasn't like, someone goes, hey man, I don't know what happened, so rip me off. No, I know exactly what happened. There was lawsuits involved and shit fell apart. The reflective period after that, the 12 years of the divorce, the remarriage, having a kid, discovering Seven Dust, managing Seven Dust, producing Seven Dust in Mendoza, having that be a huge hit, but working straight jobs in stereo stores and pool halls, asking myself, what happened exactly and how, what's going to happen in the future. That was an awfully crazy reflective period in my life. So the last 14 years of the band's enormously successful rebirth has been very pleasurable, but it's been tempered by a reality that you just take every day as it comes. So that's what I do. I kind of take, I plan for the future, yes. I see things on a double track. I see things today and I see things 10 years from now. And I can do that. I'm visionary in that respect. I can do that. But I worry about today. So therefore, once you have a kid, it changes your priorities and everything shifts around. Mm-hmm. I'm very blessed or grateful that the band was given a second shot, a second chance to come back on a variety of levels and become as successful as it did, when it didn't look like for a long time the band didn't talk and happen. So you see, this is not like a simple answer to you. It wasn't like on July 18, 1984, I said, man, this is great. Isn't this amazing? We were so caught up in the maelstrom of all of the whirlwind of the MTV era and in the middle of touring to ever understand and realize what was going on a daily basis. So as it all crashed and burned, and then as it all reestablished itself, to sit back with a legacy and a time and the ability to reflect back is very, very important. This may be probably the most introspective response you've ever gotten from a rock musician.
It is.
Which we love, by the way.
I'm sorry?
Which we love, by the way.
Well, I'm trying. It is important to be authentic. I'm not trying to be. I'm telling you, it's a stream of consciousness off of my top of my head. Right. I'm grateful that the band today matters more than it mattered back then. How's that? Okay?
Yeah,
it matters more to me that the band has more respect worldwide now than it's ever had. So maybe the answer to you is today. I can sit back to tell you that I acknowledge the band, all that hard work has mattered.
Well, that's great stuff, JJ. And I tell you what, guys, I want everybody to go to twistedsister.com to check out the dates. It starts June 10th at Sweden Rock, and it only gets bigger from there. And, JJ, if anything else, I just hope that somewhere along this 40 and Fuck It tour, and I just wanted to say it like that. It just feels good to say. We hope we can catch up with you, man. Hope we can say hello and introduce ourselves, because he's been such an influence on us. And just Twisted Sister, one of our favorite bands of all time. It's just not close. And hopefully we can get you somewhere in the United States, somewhere down the line. I know there's no official dates beyond October 1st, but man, hopefully we can make it happen, because we appreciate your candor and everything that you guys have done, man. We really do.
Well, I do write a business column for Inc. magazine. Do you guys read it? Have you ever read it?
Yes, I have. So
Inc.com, not ink as in ink through tattoos. INC.com. Inc.com. It's the online magazine, business magazine for Inc. I write a monthly column, and it's basically business lessons through the prism of rock and roll. So read my column. I think you guys will find it fascinating. Just go online to Inc.com, put JJ French in there, get my columns and read them. I'm on Twitter at JJ French. That's JYJYFRENCH. Also, we have meet and greet packages this year for the shows in Europe that we've never had before. So if you're inclined to go do that, we'll love to see you. And I want to thank you guys for having me on your show and showing support to the sister. It means an awful lot.
Absolutely, JJ. We can't thank you enough for being on the show as well, buddy.
Hey, thanks a lot. Good luck to the band, and we'll catch up, guys, soon. Thanks a lot, JJ.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again to JJ French from Twisted Sister. What a guy.
Absolutely love that, having him on. What a huge pleasure. I mean, he tells it like it is, pulls no punches, and man, he left us in just in wanting more, really, and I hope you guys enjoyed that, because it was a privilege for us to have JJ on and to talk about his band. And boy, and Paul, you always talk about Dee Snider and what a fan we both are of him. One of my favorite frontmen of all time. But you asked him, during the interview, just about his thoughts on Dee, and he just basically said he's the best frontman, one of the best rock singers of all time. That's what he said.
I did not disagree with him in the least, Clint, because Dee Snider, to me, top 5. I mean, just the charisma on stage is
and still
unmatching.
At age 60 to have that. Yeah. That's what's unbelievable.
Absolutely. I like the rest of the bands that that we interviewed as well. I mean, the charisma is undeniable.
Just huge Twisted Sister fan. I was lucky enough to see them in Rock Oklahoma 07 live, and to be able to attest to the fact that they are one of the great live bands of all time. Since 03, like JJ said, they've been touring kind of sporadically since then, but not extensively. They're a very in-demand band, but they do a lot of fly-ins on weekends, a lot of big festivals, but they don't They don't do a lot of the, extensive touring, and which means they never wore themselves thin anywhere they went. They were always in demand, always a band you wanted to see. And it's going to be sad to say goodbye to Twisted Sister, as we're saying goodbye to so many bands that we love and care about. But guys, we want to thank you so much for joining us. The journey to this point has been unbelievable for Paul and I. Man, I'm speaking for myself here, but it's been so wonderful to have you guys join us, and always know where to hit us up on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, man. Music Mania Podcast, search us up. And guys, our website, everyone check out an archive show we've done. So many shows. MusicManiaPodcast.com has everything archived for you, neat and clean. I did it myself, man, in the wee hours of the night. I sat there and archived every single show we've ever done.
I got to say, Clint, I think you're pretty much one of the hardest working guys in showbiz here. But anyway, no, as Clint said, we absolutely can't thank everybody enough for joining us, and we will definitely see you all next time.
We are, and we have a big guest coming up next week. Steve Whiteman from Kix is going to be our guest next week. We've already had Brian Damage Forsyth from Kix, and next week we're going to speak with Steve Whiteman, the frontman from one of the best bands to come out of the 80s themselves, Kix. It's going to be Steve Whiteman next week, so hold on for that. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure you hit us up, give us positive marks, positive feedback. We always like to hear it. Thank you guys so much. We will see you next time.
Take care.